$50,000, right? This is the problem with most investors. Most investors don't quite understand quality, right? They seem to only understand one thing, cheapness, right? And you can't be cheap when you're buying an investment. Right? You got to make sure it's not a plastic hammer, that it's a steel strong hammer, right? Because when you're going to pound down a nail, right, you don't want your hammer to fall apart. So you got to keep that in mind. So in order to understand the quality of it, you have to know a lot about the economics of the area that you're investing in, and that means you go down to the locality of what you're buying. It has to have some future economics. There has to be reasons why. So if you know that that a certain segment of the population is going to be economically advantaged, right, and one isn't, low income working class was not being advantaged in this circumstance for the last 5 years. It just wasn't. But the wealthy, middle class, upper middle class, I would say, were being advantaged, right? And the other thing is, the areas that were being gentrified are pushing out a lot of people. So in this case, the property I sold Marshall was next to another area in Brooklyn called Park Slope, right? People in Park Slope couldn't afford to live in the area anymore. They had to move out. Where did they move out to? The surrounding areas. There's two areas that they're moving out from Park Slope. One would be a place called South Slope, which was an offshoot of Park Slope. Another one called Windsor Terrace. So the property I sold Marshall was in Windsor Terrace, and almost everyone that came from the Park Slope area, and that just pushed up the prices all the way to $900,000. So imagine he bought his property, $75,000, one bedroom apartment. One bedroom apartment, $75,000. Isn't that pretty cheap? Well, how about $50,000 now for the same property? That's the whole thing. You can't think like that. You can't look at the price and say this is good. It's not. What you need to do is look at the future price. Yeah? So when I look at a property, it's not a bargain until I know the future of the price of that property is going to move up higher, right? My $140,000 property in 2000 when I bought it, going up to $900, almost $1 million, 14 years later. That's a freaking bargain, you understand? Not a property that you buy in 2007 for $75 that falls to $50,000. That's terrible. I don't care if you were collecting cash flow. That's terrible. So in either case, it fell so badly, there was no point in selling it, right? So the only thing he could do is rent it. But again, this is a co-op, and another reason why co-ops are not necessarily great investment. It could be in the right area, in the right circumstances. It could definitely be, right? However, in his case, he has 2 years to rent it out, and after those 2 years, he has to sell it, and hopefully not at a tremendous loss, which he would had he sold it today, right? So he didn't know how to be a landlord, so he had to learn it very quickly.
You also have maintenance fees in the co-op.
Yes, but his maintenance fees are low, for a cheap apartment like that. So it's around $400 is his maintenance fee. Right. So we needed to rent it out for some amount of money that will give him a cash flow. Right. He also had something like $40,000 mortgage on it, or $50,000 mortgage, maybe a $60,000 mortgage at the time that he got it. Right. So he has to pay for that. Between that and between the mortgage and the maintenance, he was probably paying like $750. So he had to rent it for minimally that. Right. But he doesn't know how to test the market. He doesn't know how to write a Craigslist ad. He doesn't know how to talk to the tenants, get them in. Fixing up his apartment was a problem for him. He doesn't know who to target. What kind of people would you target for that kind of property? What kind of people? What do you think? You know the area, right? Parkchester. What's around there?
Hospital?
Hospitals. Yes.
Nurses, doctors.
Right,
Workers.
he's the doctor. So he should be able to know who the target.
He's a doctor.
Now, first of all, another doctor may not actually rent the place because you're a doctor. You know, I mean, renting $1,000 apartments, you know, or an apartment $750. You're kind of embarrassed to tell your friends that, right? But not Marshall, of course. But most doctors are not going to rent the place for $750. You know, unless if it's a fabulous place, you know.
There's plenty of workers in the hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and you try to advertise and target those kinds of people. Or another person that you're going to target is someone who needs to go upstate or, you know, go north, right? Because it's such a great entrance to that location. So eventually, after doing a few advertisements and a couple of ads, it took us about 6 months to actually get qualified people because we're getting a lot of unqualified people. Oh, you know, can you take a Section 8, blah, 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 you know, those types of individuals are coming to take the apartment. One lady had 4 kids and she wanted to take this one-bedroom apartment, you know, with a voucher. Right now, unfortunately, in co-ops you can't do that. Right? You won't pass border. So there are certain things that we have to make sure. So when we submit an application to the board, you got to make sure that application is going to be able to pass, right?
Check FICO scores.
Yes. So, but again, this is a low-income apartment, right? We're talking about $1,000 or cheaper, right? So when you're asking someone to pay $20 for a credit check, that could be burdensome to someone who doesn't make a lot of money. And also, it's for a chance to rent the apartment cheaper. So it's a beautiful apartment now that has been fixed up. He put the money in, right? And he's getting a bunch of people coming in to see it. But we know that whoever's coming in and going to put an application in must pass the board approval, must pass it. We had to turn down at least 20 to 30 people who came in.
Finally, you got a good one?
Finally, one guy came. He worked for Comcast, and he does sporting events, you know, for them, and needed to go up to ESPN, which is in Bristol, Connecticut, right? So finally, he came in and he's like, wow, this is a perfect apartment for me. It was very well qualified, made a decent income, you know, and is really using the place, you know, because it's so quick to get up to Connecticut from that location. You know, so after that, signed the lease. He's renting now, perfect. You know, he's been paying $1,000 a month, you know, for the apartment, which gives Marshall now cash flow is $250. Right. So now Marshall is doing quite well. That doesn't mean, though, in 2 years when he actually has to now get now in 2 years they're going to force him to live in the apartment, right? Which means he has to vacate the apartment, then now take it over and live there as an owner. By then he's going to have to sell, right? Because he's not going to go back to the apartment unless somebody here takes it, right? But so
I have a question. Could he move the deed into a LLC or something, and if he takes a loss, can he write it off?
it's a co-op. They won't let you do that.
He won't move it into an LLC or anything? Even though using it as a business.
The deed is shares.
The deed won't allow it. But if it was a condo, it would possibly.
Condo, yeah, condo you can do anything with, but a co-op it's totally different. You can't do anything without board approval, and they're not going to allow any. First of all, they're not deeds; they're actually master leases.
They're shared.
Right? Yeah, and shares exactly. You know, so
What is that, Jermaine?
now the funny thing is, so in Marshall's case, he had lost so much money in his first investment, right? So I lent them a whole bunch of money. And part of that deal was that I was going to lien his property. So I actually liened that co-op. Right? The board doesn't know about that. You know, it's very easy to put a lien on a co-op property. Right? Just file a couple of forms. You don't need anyone's signature. Just file it. You know, you do. It's called a UCC. Right? So you throw a UCC lien against property, and that's it. Right? He could take it off, but then I would sue him if that were the case. You know,
the danger would be if it even further depreciates, then your investment is at risk, right?
Yes, except for the only reason why I did it is because number one, he's a doctor, right? So I'm not afraid that he's not going to pay me. Number two, you always do your due diligence at the bank. You got to make sure you check his FICO, his income, his assets, and so on. Once he passes that, that's fine. So now I give him a loan, say $100,000, right? And then what happens is that he pays me. But then, after he pays me, what is he going to do with his taxes? What is he going to do? He's paying me. What is he going to do? He's going to deduct it. But you can't deduct a personal loan, right? The only thing you could deduct is a loan that is on some sort of real estate asset. This is why we created the lien. Not necessarily, for any other particular reason, like I'm afraid he's going to run away with me and then all of a sudden I'm going to own his cheap co-op. That wasn't the idea. The only purpose here was to allow him to get a deduction on the interest that he's paying me, which I have to declare as income. Right? You see the process. So, but a lot of people somehow don't go deep enough to understand enough to know what you can do. Now, I didn't have to go to classes to learn this stuff. You just go ahead and you study it and then you figure it out. It's not hard. You have the best library there is in the world. That's the internet, right? The best librarian. That's Google, right? That tool that you have in front of you, you could figure everything out. Now, the only reason why taking classes from people like me and Jermaine is worth it, it's because we can focus you on where you need to go, right? But then afterwards, it's not up to us to make you rich. It's only one person that's going to make you rich. That's you, right? Still now up to you to go ahead and do something with that education. And again, now you need to assess the quality of that education, right? Do you got a plastic hammer or you got a steel hammer? What kind of hammer do you really have here, right? Well, the way you know the quality is from the people who've been successful in the course, right? And that's what these meetings are about. Now, a lot of it's social, a lot of it is like, hey, look who I'm with. So the last group that we came with there was 25 students that were here or more. We sat down over there, and I decided we're going to do this like every couple of weeks and stuff like that. That student group that met, there were 25 people of my former students. They were probably 95% successful. And if you total them up, it will probably be $5 million in profits is what they made over the time that they took the classes. Right. So we have a very successful group. I decided that I'm not really teaching personally, right? But it still needs to go on. Yeah. And then so this is where Jermaine comes in. Jermaine knows the education inside and out. Jeff, who now came back from class after being absent for a little while, started up his trading. He's doing phenomenally well. He's on a 66% annualized return at the moment. So
on options?
On options.
He's the man.
So we got a lot of stuff going on. So Jermaine and I are now involved in a brownstone. Day we bought the brownstone, we made $100,000. Because we bought it for $900, the appraisal was $1 million. That was an instantaneous $100,000. By the time we finish the renovations and then go for the HELOC to get another appraisal, it will be worth $300,000 more than the purchase price. So there are a lot of ways to go ahead and get wealthy, right? But be amongst the people who are successful, right? Don't be amongst other people who say that they're successful and they don't show it, or they don't really tell you the truth about things. There's a lot of instructors who don't, they preach, but they don't do.
Yeah, I had a friend who was taking advantage of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Everybody said I own this, I own that. Nobody showed the way you show on Acris that you own it.
Yeah.
Nobody. They say they own. All the teachers there.
Yeah. So
And she was buying in Atlanta, and somebody was coming on the phone representing himself as a contractor to make repairs in the company. And I asked her if she takes the plane to really check what she
Right,
bought.
these are just students
No,
and
that's
stuff
not
like
how
that.
we do it.
I don't understand
we're
why
trying to
these
teach how
groups
to
do that. There is really no
real estate
group
and
out
stock
there
market.
like ours. When I say I own a property and it's in New York, there's a website
yeah,
you
there's
can go
called,
on, the New York City website.
Meetup.
It's called Acris, right? That's the county clerk's
Yeah,
website for New York City. They hold all the deeds. It's a public domain.
Give me a second.
But none of these courses teach you to do that. Why? Because they know their instructors are lousy. Matter of fact, they were saying 50% of all real estate instructors have went bankrupt. And then they became teachers. This is the person you want to learn from? You know? But if you learn to research it, if you learn to research it, then you would know to stay away. The problem is people don't bother with that.
Let me get your
Instead of
contact
saying, hey, I don't want to
and
know.
I'll just
Does this guy do what he says he does? You know, no one seems to do that. This is like one of the only groups, and I'm shocked myself why instructors who say they own property don't
Alright,
prove it.
it's really
Funny stuff. They just say they do.
I'm giving my number.
Person's word is not good for it until it's verified, right? So you should never believe until you verify, right? You know, so that's sort of the idea. All right, guys, let me get this one person here, and then we'll. I want to walk to an ice cream place. The ice cream is absolutely delicious.
Not this one?
No, not this one. Different one. Let's go to the other ice cream place. And then if you guys want to taste that one, they have the kid size for $2. No, and I recommend that one. I do like this one. This other one is better. It's called Amber Hill. That's cute. You want to look it up on Yelp? Look it up on Yelp.
Was it close to the got that? Is one of two. Shake Shack has some. A lot of new stuff.
Today is Saturday, August the 23rd, 2014. We're here at the Brooklyn Ice Cream Factory discussing investing in both real estate and stock market and also just general investing.
Okay, yeah, so just give me a call when you're in the area. If you're still heading over here. And then we'll probably head over to the diner called Diner. So we're going to be here for a while. Alright, I'll see you later. Alright guys, let's head over to the other place. And it's a nice walk too.
But she bought the pie.